Hi, this is Dave. How do you build a business or a career that is financially rewarding, fulfilling, does good work, and has an impact? How do you do that? Of course, the answer is not something we can do in 25 words or less, but there are some principles. And, one of the principles that I have discovered in my 35 years as a consultant and sales guru is this: biblical business principles are also those principles that enable a company to achieve more of its potential. In other words, you can take the biblical sourcing away from a business principle, and the principle still works. Now, I stumbled across this truth as it specifically relates to B2B salespeople. Assemble a system and a set of practices that enable a salesperson to leap to the top of his or her profession, and coincidentally, those principles arrived at through a study of the Bible. Coincidentally, those principles arrived at through a study of the best practices of successful salespeople are, in fact, the very same principles discerned through a study of the Bible. They come together. Biblical principles of business and career success come together with the best practices. Now, as a consultant, I've discovered that same truth applied to businesses and professional careers. Not only does it apply to salespeople, but it applies to businesses and applies to professional careers. Adhere to certain biblical principles, whether or not you know they're biblical, and your career will blossom and your business will reach more of its potential. You don't need to be a biblical student to discover the principles upon which you can build a successful career. You just need to study the best practices of the best in your business, and the two will coincide. Now, in an earlier podcast, I unpacked one such principle, and that is the principle of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Biblically, Jesus said this in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. Practically, let's take the biblical portion out of it. Practically, it's incredibly good advice upon which you can build a personal character and a corporate culture. And in this podcast, I'm going to add another biblical principle that coincides with best business practices. And that principle is, quote, do everything with integrity. Do everything with integrity. In other words, build integrity into your personal character and your corporate culture. Well, let's unpack this, and I like to begin with a definition. According to dictionary.com, integrity is, quote, adherence to moral or ethical principles, unquote. Biblically, the New Testament Greek word, which is translated as integrity in English, means, quote, honesty and adherence to a pattern of good works, end quote. It's one of the core Christian values. So if you build integrity into your business character and your corporate culture, you'll be manifesting what is both a biblical principle as well as a best business practices. Simply put, operating with integrity is good business. And here's why. Integrity leads to trust. Trust saves time and is necessary for any ongoing customer or employee relationship. It's hard to develop a core of loyal customers or loyal employees if they don't trust you. Honesty is a powerful sales strategy. It's probably more important today than ever before. It works like this. If you have integrity, you save your customer time. In today's frenzied world, time is more precious than money. If your customers cannot believe you, then they must spend hours, days, or weeks of precious time confirming the representations that you have made. If, however, they can believe you, then they don't feel the need to check for the veracity of every single statement or fact. Here's an illustration from my own life. A few years ago, my wife and I were attempted to purchase a condominium. Now, the condo was in a resort location, and it had been used as a rental unit, so it came fully furnished down to the silverware and cooking utensils. So we thought it was a good value and a wise investment. We offered the owner exactly his asking price. And shortly thereafter, word came from the real estate agent that the owner, on receiving our full price offer, had increased his price. Now, the owner may have been looking at his actions as a slick negotiating ploy. We saw it as a lack of integrity. See, here was the issue. If we could not believe his stated price, then we could not believe any of the representation he had made. We would be reduced to counting the number of knives and forks instead of believing the inventory sheet he provided for us. Now, we didn't want to waste our time checking out every single little detail of the deal. If we couldn't trust some of the representations by the owner, then we couldn't trust any of them. And if we could not trust any, it wasn't worth it to us to take the risk in dealing with them. And so we walked away from the deal. We saw the owner's lack of integrity as causing us to invest a great deal of time to assure ourselves that the risk was worth the money. Now, the same is true of your customers. The more your customer trusts you, the less risk your customer feels in dealing with you, and the less time necessary to invest in understanding the product or the service or the program you're offering. From the customer's perspective, it's easier and less risky to deal with someone you trust than with someone you don't trust. And that can translate directly into dollars. You know, I'm sure you feel this way too. I'm always willing to pay more for something if I can buy it with less risk. In other words, if I can buy it from a company or person I can trust. On the other hand, I'd rather not buy something at all if I have suspicious feelings about the vendor. Here's another example. A few years ago, I grew jealous of my neighbor's lawn. You know, his was greener, thicker, and fuller than my lawn. And it was because he had a lawn care service come several times a year and fertilize his lawn. So, you know, I said, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. So I got the name and phone number of the company that he used. I got an idea about what the service would cost me, and then I decided to do business with him. So I called the company I was ready to buy. And when I inquired about the types of service available, the salesperson who was speaking with me on the phone indicated that there were several options available. Now, I'm a visually oriented person, and I like to make decisions based upon what I read, not what I hear. So I said, okay, why not come out and do the first application and then leave me a brochure so that I can review my options and then I'll make a decision? The salesperson said, yeah, that'd be fine. So we then reviewed the details of my location and the approximate date for the first fertilizer application, and it was a deal. Salesperson then repeated our agreement, saying, okay, we'll be out to do the first application. We'll leave you a brochure, and then you can cancel at any time with 30 days' notice. What? I said. He repeated his comment. You can cancel at any time with 30 days' notice. I said, whoa, wait a minute. I only agreed to one application. I'm not committing to any ongoing contract until I check out all the options. But that's not how we do it, the salesperson stammered. No, I said. But, more stammers. No, I said. Forget it. Cancel me. Okay, now what happened? Here I was, as good a prospect as there ever was. I was ready to purchase. I've decided to use this company. I even called them to make the purchase. Yet, something in what the salesperson said raised a red flag in my mind. It made me doubt the integrity of the person and, by inference, the company. He had originally said that I'd be billed for only one application and then implied that I was committing to an ongoing program. Okay, now maybe I was a little too strident here, but I viewed that as being deceitful or at best manipulative. If I can't trust them on that, then what can I trust them? There are lots of other lawn care companies, and the next one on the Yelp page has got my business, which illustrates another aspect of integrity. There can be no compromises with integrity. You cannot have integrity on this thing, but not on that. And then expect to build trust. It is an all or nothing issue. Integrity must extend down to the smallest details. My lawn care story illustrated that principle. The company may have prided themselves on their integrity, but a few words from a salesperson evoked my suspicions. If I can't trust them on this, how can I trust them on something else? Life is too short and business is too busy to deal with people you cannot trust. Trust is the natural outcome of integrity. If you want to build a business that is fulfilling, financially rewarding, makes an impact, if you want to build a career that brings you fulfillment and satisfaction, then you've got to build in some biblical principles. And one of them is the principle of integrity. Okay? If you're interested in building a biblical business, a career that has an impact, a business that has an impact for the kingdom, then you need to be exposed to this kind of content. Not only this kind of content, but you need to rub shoulders and have connections with people who have the same mindset and the same motivation and the same worldview. And that's what you can find in our XI community. XI stands, by the way, for Excellence and Influence. It's a community, it's an online community for people interested in pursuing excellence and influence in a Christian business. So we have lots of stuff, like this podcast, lots of content. Most of it's free. Some of it we charge a small amount for, but, membership in the community, the Christian business group of the XI community is, listen to this, hold on, $5 a month. Yeah, I know. So, yeah, okay. You know that's it's being subsidized. So I'm subsidizing it because I want people who want to engage, who are serious about having an impact in the marketplace for the kingdom. So I'm going to subsidize you, and you can pay me $5 a month and join the community. Like, that's a no-brainer. I'll put a link in the show notes. Check it out. Okay. Thanks. We're done. Bye bye.